The earth remembered the giants. Even after the flood had washed their bones into the depths of the sea, the soil itself seemed to whisper their names. In ruined cities buried beneath sand and stone, in broken temples swallowed by time, there was a lingering echo of something not human that had once ruled this world. Humanity rebuilt. Empires rose. But the shadow of the Nephilim never truly left. And in the unseen realm, the spirits of those giants, now demons, were waiting. They had lost their bodies in the judgment of God, but they had not lost their memory. They remembered what it felt like to walk in flesh, to be worshipped, to command fear, to dominate humanity. And now they move through the air like invisible kings without kingdoms, searching for a way back into the physical world. They whispered into the minds of men. They whispered into the dreams of kings. They whispered into the bloodlines of families. And when they found a vessel willing to listen, they poured their ancient hatred into human ambition. That is how Nimrod rose. The Bible calls him a mighty hunter, but ancient tradition remembered him as a ruler empowered by the unseen. Nimrod was not just building a kingdom. He was rebuilding a gateway. The demons that once ruled through the Nephilim filled his thoughts with visions of the ancient world, when heaven and earth had been joined through forbidden unions. Build higher, they said. Unite humanity, they said. Open the door again. So he built Babel. The tower was not meant to reach the clouds. It was meant to reopen a spiritual breach, the same kind of doorway the Watchers had once used. And as the bricks rose, so did the influence of the unseen. Priests began to speak in strange tongues. Astrologers saw visions in the stars. Sorcerers felt ancient power returning. But God intervened. In a single moment, he shattered their unity. Languages fractured. My mind was confused. The project collapsed. Humanity scattered across the earth. Yet the demons were not discouraged. They had learned something important. If they could not open the door through heaven, they would open it through blood. So they began to manipulate bloodlines. Kings were tempted to take many wives. Royal families were guided to intermarry in specific ways. Generations were subtly influenced, guided by invisible hands, all to create physical vessels strong enough, corrupted enough, to hold demonic power. And in time, giants returned, not as powerful as before, but powerful enough. The Anakim rose in Canaan. Towering warriors, feared by every nation around them. The Rephaim ruled in the east. The Zamzummim became legends of terror. They were not pure Nephilim, but they carried traces of the ancient corruption, and the demons flocked to them, using their bodies as thrones. When Israel came to the edge of the Promised Land, fear seized the people. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers. Numbers 13:33. They were not exaggerating. These giants radiated a presence that crushed the soul. Demonic power flowed through their veins, turning them into walking fortresses of darkness. But God had not brought Israel there to lose. He had brought them there to erase a forbidden legacy. Every city Joshua destroyed was not just a military victory. It was a spiritual execution. Every giant killed was another door slammed shut. Yet some escaped. One of them was Goliath. He stood over 9 feet tall. His armor was thick as scales. His voice shook the battlefield. But what terrified Israel was not his size. It was what was inside him. Ancient hatred, demonic presence, the last echo of a forbidden bloodline. When David faced him, heaven held its breath. A shepherd boy against a remnant of the Nephilim. But David was not just carrying a sling. He was carrying the authority of God. The stone struck Goliath's head, and when the giant fell, something unseen screamed. The demons that had used him were ripped from their vessel, thrown back into the invisible realm. And hell knew. The ancient race was nearly gone. But the war was not over, because the demons had a new target. Not giants, but the seed, the promised Messiah. From a moment Jesus was born, hell tried to kill him. Herod's massacre, the wilderness temptation, the constant demonic attacks in the Gospels, possessions, madness, fear. It was all designed to stop one thing, the cross. But what hell did not understand was that the cross was not defeat. It was God's trap. When Jesus died, he descended into the realm of the dead, into the depths where the watchers were chained, into the prisons where demons remembered their former glory. And there, he proclaimed his victory. He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them. Colossians 2 verse 15. The fallen angels heard it. The demons felt it. Their authority was broken, but they were not destroyed. Not yet. They are still here, still influencing, still preparing the world for one final attempt to reopen the forbidden door. The same spirits that once created the Nephilim are working now through technology, through genetic manipulation, through spiritual deception, trying to rebuild what God once destroyed. And the closer we come to the end, the closer they come to revealing themselves again. Because the days of Noah are returning. And when they do, the giants will not come from mountains. They will come from humanity itself. The world had grown bold. The ancient whispers of the fallen watchers had traveled through centuries, hiding behind crowns, temples, and forbidden knowledge. Their influence was no longer visible to the naked eye, but it was everywhere. Darkness had learned patience. It no longer relied on towering giants or visible Nephilim. It had discovered a subtler, deadlier weapon: deception. Empires rose and fell. Kings sought power at any cost. Priests twisted truth into lies. And humanity, hungry for wisdom and influence, reached for the forbidden gifts of knowledge the Watchers had left behind. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Isaiah 5 verse 20. The demons moved like shadows through the corridors of power, whispering promises of wealth, glory, and secret knowledge. They tempted men to rebel against God, to ignore the divine law, and to open doors that should never have been touched. But this time, they had a new plan. The Watchers, still chained in the abyss, had sent their remaining forces to manipulate humanity's bloodlines, trying to create a vessel capable of holding their power again. Not a giant this time, but a human perfectly corrupted by ambition, pride, and the ancient teachings of forbidden knowledge. And in the final generation, this vessel arose. He was not born in a palace. He was born where ambition and darkness quietly festered, a city ruled by greed, idolatry, and secret societies. From childhood, he displayed extraordinary intellect and cunning. People followed him, worshipped him, feared him, even as they sensed something unnatural in him. The demons whispered to him in his dreams, shaping his mind. They taught him secrets of the stars, of herbs, of bloodlines. They promised him dominion over nations. The serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, so your heart can be led astray without knowing it. Genesis 3 verse 1. The world around him began to tremble. Economies, armies, religions, and governments bent under his influence. He was not a king, not yet, but he was already ruling hearts. And with every step, the ancient rebellion in heaven gained strength on earth. Meanwhile, the faithful watched and prayed. Small communities, secret followers of God, sensed the rising darkness. They had been told to watch for signs, false prophets, sudden corruption, sudden storms of greed and violence. But even they did not understand the scale of what was coming. Because the final deception was not just political, not just spiritual, it was personal. The demons began to infiltrate not only the world but individual lives. Families were divided. Friends betrayed each other. Love was twisted into lust, loyalty into fear, faith into doubt. The whispers reached even the hearts of God's chosen, testing their trust in Him. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. 1 Peter 5 verse 8. And then came the greatest sign, the false prophet, not a man born of heaven's will, but a vessel crafted by the hidden powers, speaking with the authority of the Watchers. His words were convincing. His miracles were real, but only illusions, powered by demons. He healed the sick, predicted disasters, and performed wonders designed to awe the nations. People fell before him. Leaders bowed. Nations whispered his name with reverence and fear. And yet, in the shadows, a few stood firm. They knew the Messiah was coming. They remembered the prophecies of David, of Isaiah, of Daniel. They had studied the patterns of history, the rise of giants, the corruption of bloodlines, the chains of the watchers. The faithful prepared. They prayed. They waited. And they watched. Because the false prophet's rise was only the beginning. Behind him, the demons began their final work, opening doors to the spiritual realm that should never be opened. Ancient incantations, forbidden rituals, and blood sacrifices all converged. The heavens trembled. Angels could feel it. The chains of the watchers pulsed with energy, as if something in their imprisonment had shifted. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Matthew 2400 hours 24. The world was on the brink. Nations would soon face deception so powerful, it would test faith, loyalty, and courage like never before. And the watchers, still bound in the abyss, smiled in their rage. They could not move. They could not touch the world physically, but their influence had returned stronger than ever. And now, for the first time since the flood, they were close to reclaiming what had been lost. Because the vessel of corruption was ready. Because the false prophet was rising. Because humanity was once again flirting with forbidden power. And when the darkness fully returns, when the chains of heaven tremble and the last deception spreads like wildfire, the world will not know who to trust. The war between heaven and earth is about to enter its most dangerous phase, and the line between good and evil will be blurred as never before. The world trembled. The air was thick with whispers of the unseen. Nations had bowed to the false prophet. Kings had pledged loyalty to the vessel of corruption. Entire cities were controlled by shadows that no man could see, yet everyone could feel. Fear had become the ruler of the earth, and above it all, the heavens stirred. The chains that had bound the watchers pulsed like living veins. The angels of God, mighty and countless, gathered. Michael stood at the forefront, sword gleaming with holy fire. Gabriel's wings cut through the clouds. Raphael's presence radiated judgment. The army of heaven was ready, but even they knew the coming battle would be unlike any before it. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6 verse 12. The vessel of corruption had grown stronger. The false prophet, his voice amplified by demonic power, commanded awe-inspiring signs and wonders. Lightning obeyed his gestures. Fire danced at his feet. The seas parted for him. Crowds worshipped, kneeling in awe and terror. Yet, there were those who refused to bow. The faithful, the few who remembered prophecy. They prayed, fasted, and gathered in secret, calling upon God's power to protect them. Their faith was a fragile shield, but it was enough to pierce the darkness. And then, the first strike came. From the heavens, a legion of angels descended. Their presence was blinding. Wings of light cut through the sky. Thunder rolled with every step. Michael raised his sword, and a sound like the crashing of 1,000 storms filled the earth. The demon screamed. The false prophet faltered. The vessel of corruption felt the invisible chains of God pressing down, suffocating his influence. The battle began, not with armies of men, but with forces unseen by the human eye. Angels clashed with demons in the skies. Spiritual energy tore through the earth. Mountains shook. Oceans boiled. Cities toppled. The armies of heaven were following him, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Revelation 19 verse 14. The watchers themselves strained against their chains. Rage and fury poured from them, seeking to influence the battle, but the chains held firm. Heaven had prepared for this moment since the beginning of time. The demons screamed into the minds of humans, tempting them with lies. Worship the vessel, bow to the false prophet, betray your friends, forsake God. And many did. But the faithful resisted. And then it happened. The Messiah appeared, not as a man of terror or awe, but as the Lamb of God, radiant, commanding, pure. Light emanated from him in every direction, burning away deception, revealing the truth hidden beneath shadows. The false prophet faltered, demons recoiled, and the vessel of corruption realized for the first time that their power had limits. Behold, he comes with clouds, and every eye shall see him. Revelation 1 verse 7. The Messiah struck with authority. The chains of the watchers glowed brighter, holding them tighter. The demons were cast into pits, shrieking as they were banished from their earthly vessels. The false prophet fell, his power extinguished, and the vessel of corruption, once thought unstoppable, was revealed as nothing but a shadow, a puppet, a tool for the rebellion. Humanity watched in awe and terror. Some wept, some shouted, some knelt, and for the first time in centuries, the earth breathed again. The battle was over, but the lesson remained. Evil does not always announce itself with fire or giants. It whispers, it manipulates, it deceives, and it will always test the hearts of men. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4 verse 7. The watchers were chained once more, stronger than before. The demons were cast down, and the earth, scarred but free, began to heal. Yet, even as peace returned, a warning echoed across the heavens. The rebellion may have been defeated, but temptation never dies. The story of humanity is one of vigilance, faith, and courage. Heaven won the battle, but the war for hearts continues every day. And somewhere, in the hidden places of the world, whispers of the fallen still stir, waiting for the next generation to look up instead of up to God. Because the last battle may have been won, but the war never truly ends. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 13. To everyone who has stayed with us through this journey, thank you. Your time, your attention, and your heart mean more than words can express. Remember this. No matter how dark the world may seem, no matter how unseen battles rage around you, God is always in control. The same power that defeated the fallen angels, that protected Noah, that raised up the Messiah, is watching over you today. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27 verse 1. You are stronger than fear, braver than doubt, and love beyond measure. Stand firm in faith. Keep your eyes on the truth, and do not let the whispers of darkness shake your soul. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of God's power, please support this channel. Subscribe to the Word of Eternity. Join us for more stories that reveal God's truth. Like this video to encourage others to see the light. Share it with someone who needs hope and encouragement today. Your presence here matters. Your faith matters. And together, we can keep spreading the light in a world that desperately needs it. Stay vigilant. Stay faithful. And remember, God wins in the end.